Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of News Dose, where I give you all of the latest gaming news. And TGS 2020 continues on today, and we got some big announcements coming out over there, including a very exciting franchise returning. Also, Xbox Game Pass just got a big competitor, and the Xbox Series is already seeing some success in some very surprising regions, so stay tuned for that as well. And then we have those Switch Pro rumors, and they are really starting to heat up right now. So yeah, we got a lot to go over today, so let's get right into it and talk about something we discussed just yesterday: Metal Gear Solid. Yes, Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, as well as Konami's collector series, Contra and Castlevania, have all been confirmed for a PC release. In fact, you can actually buy these right now on GOG.com. You're not going to have to wait to play these games at all, and they just got shadow launched right onto the PC. Now, I do find it interesting that it's not currently available on the most popular PC storefront, Steam, but you know, GOG.com is a really good PC launcher, and these are very good games. Sure, they are a little bit older now, but these are legendary games for a good reason, and as a big Metal Gear fan myself, I'm really happy to see them return. With that said, I would like to see them come over to consoles as well. These would be pretty cool games to have on the Switch, so I'm just saying. I do find it strange that they limited these games to just one storefront, but it is Konami, so I probably shouldn't be overly surprised by this. I'm still curious about those Metal Gear Solid remake rumors though, so I'm at least hoping that's true, but in the meantime, you can at least go back and enjoy these classics on the GOG store. And speaking of classics, Sega announced a big one today. Sega has officially announced that they will be reviving Virtua Fighter. Now, they're not really saying much about this game, and we don't have gameplay just yet, but they're calling it Virtua Fighter X Esports, which signifies that they're going to prioritize the competitive scene. However, I do think that makes sense because esports is incredibly important for fighting games. I would even say it's debatable that fighting games live and breathes off of their competitive scene. I mean, sure, some fighting games has a good single-player component to them, such as Mortal Kombat, but there is nothing quite like facing off against real people and filling out your opponent. A little secret about me, but I do love fighting games, though Killer Instinct is my personal favorite. Nonetheless, it's just an absolute rush, so I'm okay with them going more towards esports here. Virtua Fighter is interesting as well because this is such an iconic fighting game franchise. Some people might not realize this, but Virtua Fighter was the first arcade fighting game with fully 3D polygon graphics. It was an evolution back in 1993, and it's also a very good fighting game franchise. Sadly though, we haven't really seen a new Virtua Fighter since 2010, so I think a lot of fans are really going to be happy with this announcement. Now we just need to see some gameplay. We also got some new information on Final Fantasy XVI. When this game was revealed at the PlayStation 5 conference, a lot of fans assumed it was still years away from releasing. Well, it looks like it may actually be closer to releasing than what we originally thought, because apparently Final Fantasy XVI has been in development for 4 years. Yeah, this may actually release as soon as next year based off of the development time, though Square Enix does have a tendency of having long development cycles, so there really is no guarantee there. But at the very latest, I would expect this to be a 2022 release. I am hoping it will be 2021 because I do really like the Final Fantasy franchise, and I think 16 in particular looks really interesting. I know some don't think it looks necessarily next-gen per se, but I'm really liking the themes of this game. It looks much grittier than past titles, but also it looks very similar to Final Fantasy XIV. From my understanding, it is being developed by the Final Fantasy XIV team, or at least one of the teams that's worked on Final Fantasy XIV, and here's the thing. While yes, Final Fantasy XIV is an MMO, there is a very real argument that it has the best narratives out of any of the Final Fantasy games, especially with the expansions. So it'll be very interesting to see what they can do with a fully single-player experience where they can really focus on the narrative. Either way, I'm very excited about this game, and I'm hoping it'll be a 2021 release. Now, there was a really big announcement made yesterday that could have a major impact on the game industry, and a direct competitor to Xbox Game Pass. Yeah, Amazon has officially thrown down the gauntlet and announced their own game streaming subscription service, Luna. This would be a direct competitor to both Google Stadia and Xbox Game Pass with xCloud. I would say it's a little bit more similar to Xbox Game Pass though, but it actually is the cheapest game streaming service right now, starting at only $5.99 a month. Do keep in mind though that this is just for the beta, and the price will likely increase once they go out of beta. But for the time being, that is a very good price. They're also offering some pretty good games here, which is what surprised me the most. They got Remedy's Control, Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair, Rime, Sonic Mania, Metro, among several others. It's actually not a bad lineup at all, and something different that they're doing is that they're adding channels. Now this is something that Amazon does with their TV content as well. As an example, they have an HBO channel, CBS, Starz, and things like that, where you can subscribe to those for an extra fee. So from the sounds of it, they're going to do something similar with Luna, where they will offer game channels. As an example, you can also subscribe to Ubisoft, where you can play games like Far Cry 6 and Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So that is a pretty big partnership, though you will have to pay extra for each individual channel you subscribe to, and we do not know the price of each channel just yet. I do think that's interesting though, and it does sound much better than Google Stadia at the very least. It's still not quite as good as Xbox Game Pass, but this once again shows you why Xbox is investing so heavily into Xbox Game Studios. They're not just trying to battle off PlayStation in terms of consoles, but they're also looking at the bigger picture here, and they're trying to hold off Google and Amazon, which are much bigger companies than Sony. This is where Microsoft really has an advantage though, because they do have much more experience in the game space than either Google or Amazon, and it really shows with their first-party content. They have games like Halo, Gears, Forza, Fallout, The Elder Scrolls, and the list goes on and on. And this is something that I've been seeing a lot this week since the Bethesda acquisition. A lot of fans keep making the argument that Xbox has to make Bethesda games multi-platform because they spent $7.5 billion to acquire them. That is a lot of money, so maybe they want to sell more games across multiple platforms. That's not the case at all though. It's not just about selling more games. The bigger picture here is Xbox Game Pass and the Xbox ecosystem, which will make them far more money in the long run than just simply selling games. They want people to buy into Xbox Game Pass, and the best way they can possibly do that is by having exclusive content. This not only gets fans from competing consoles like PlayStation fans to come over to the Xbox ecosystem, whether that be through the PC, console, or even xCloud, but it also keeps people from investing into Luna or Google Stadia. Funny enough though, Amazon also revealed their new controller, which looks kind of familiar. It's almost as if they just took the Xbox controller, made a few tweaks, and just changed up the colors. It's a comfortable controller though, so I guess it is what it is. I will ask you though, what do you think about Amazon Luna, and do you think it has the potential to compete with Xbox Game Pass? Let me know in the comments below. And speaking of Xbox, we got some surprising early success for the Xbox Series in the Asian regions. In fact, Xbox Series pre-orders sold out in Japan, Korea, and India in a matter of minutes. This is a very good sign for Xbox Series, as places like Japan, Xbox has historically struggled in, especially with the Xbox One. Now, Phil Spencer did note yesterday that they are seeing more engagement from Japan since releasing Xbox Game Pass, so that could help out over there, and as I've mentioned in the past, xCloud could be a very big deal there. They do love handheld gaming. With that said though, we don't really know how many Xbox Series consoles were actually available to pre-order in this region. It could have been very little for all we know, but Jess Corden on Twitter did post it's not as low as people think, and he does know his Microsoft stuff. Now, this isn't necessarily proof that Xbox is suddenly going to explode in Japan or anything like that, but it's still nice to hear that they're doing well over there early on. They really do need to dramatically improve in that region. They probably won't ever be able to compete with Nintendo and PlayStation over there, but they just have to trend upwards from this generation. It cannot be another Xbox One situation where it's basically non-existent in Japan. Why is this so important though? Well, the better Xbox does in Japan, the more Japanese developers will support that console, and that benefits everybody worldwide, so do keep that in mind. On to our last topic though. Those Nintendo Switch Pro rumors are back yet again, and this time it's coming from a very reliable insider, Dustgolem. Dustgolem on numerous occasions has proven he does have sources in the game industry, especially with Capcom related stuff. He did leak very specific details about Resident Evil 8 in the past, which was correct. He also leaked Monster Hunter Rise ahead of time and even revealed that it was using the Resident Evil engine. He also leaked the Shenmue anime, so again, he very clearly has sources, so there is a reason to believe what he says. But as always, take these leaks with a grain of salt. With that said though, he seems very confident with those Switch Pro rumors and claims that he knows they are true, and it's the reason why recent Switch games have unlocked frame rates so they can have an easy performance boost on the Switch Pro. So there it is. This is yet more evidence that there will be a Switch Pro, though there are still questions of what this Switch Pro actually is. Well, based off of recent leaks, it does sound like the Switch Pro will be a 4K device, which would be huge. Obviously, it's probably not going to be 4K in handheld mode, but rather in docked. As for handheld, just getting the resolution to a stable 720 to 1080p would be very nice. Currently, there are games such as Xenoblade that cannot run at 720p on handheld, so handheld mode could improve there. The big difference that I do expect though would be in docked mode, and I think a Switch Pro and 4K resolution with better frame rate would be a big seller. This is something that Nintendo has done for a very long time. If you take a look at the 3DS as an example, they made several different models that appealed to different gamers. You had the 3DS, the new 3DS, and even a 2DS. So you really could choose what you wanted the most, and having these choices is really nice to have. Either way though, this does look like it will actually happen, and yeah, I'll probably buy into it if it's a big enough improvement. I will ask you though, what would you like to see from a Switch Pro, and would you buy one? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.